welcome to everyone. Last week, we studied the sixth verse, where we touched upon the concept of attachment. Verses 6, 7, and 8 speaks about attachment to the physical body. Verse 7 speaks about attachment to the mind. And the 8th verse speaks about the attachment to the intellect. Attachment, as we learned, is purely a mental binding, a mental attitude which you confine your thoughts and ideas. And such mental attachment, not only does it confine you, it limits you, it also, you're not able to look at anything beyond it, anything other than it. So the opposite of that, we said, is to develop a spirit of detachment. Throughout the Shastras, throughout a study, throughout the scriptures, throughout the journey, we'll have to practice this quality of detachment. And we understood detachment is to have an attitude of an unconcerned concern. Isn't it, Hirenji? An attitude of unconcerned concern. In life, everything in life is a reflection of the gunas. Everything in life is nothing but a reflection of our own mind. In fact, it is very safe to say the world is a projection of your own mind. And the mind has got three distinct natures, whether be it tamasic, the lowest of nature, rajasic is a little mediocre, sattva is the highest of natures. So since we are talking of attachment and detachment, tamas is a state where one remains unconcerned, where you have an attitude of don't care, you're not bothered, you're not interested, you don't think of sparing a moment or thought of concern, where you are reckless, heedless, you're irresponsible, where you're given a word and you don't keep to that word. You're not able to acknowledge it. You're not able to respect that. You're not able to commit. Having committed, you're not able to hold on to that commitment. And that is tamas. I give you a time and I must be there on that time. I must honor your time. As simple as keeping to time. If I'm not mindful of that, I'm tamasic. I have given my word, I will see you at that time, but whatever be the time, I should be there. It's your duty. I take help from you, and I have never given a loan to anyone because I'm on the principle that what Shakespeare says, neither a borrower nor lender be. I will neither borrow nor lend, because it often loses itself and the friend. Because you give a loan, and if the guy who would take the loan from you is not in a position to give you back, you will lose the loan and the friend. So never ever give a loan. You give with such a heart that you will never get it back. So you don't, if at all you're lost, you only lost your material resources. You have never lost your friend. So what's more important? Is it a friend or your material belongings? The other time, someone approached me and said they want some help. And what little I had and be of help, it was sufficient for him. I gave it to him. And he said he'll come back to me and return it. And I applied this principle. He has never kept to his word. That little help I rendered, I never got it back. But I'm glad I didn't lose a friend, because I never raised that point with him ever. I've never ever raised that point with him. But I've still upheld my relationship with him as a friend. But I understand his lack of keeping up to his word. He sought to help, but he's not upholding to his word of acknowledging or even telling, sorry, sir, I'm late in returning it. I can't. He lacks it. Extreme tamas. He takes it for granted. That's tamasic, unconcerned. So if you're also unconcerned to whatever is coming your way, it's tamas. There's a lot of effort that goes in just to make this knowledge available to your doorstep. How is it coming? What effort is being put in? What can I do to make it happen? Have I done anything to reach more people? If you're unmindful of the fact that something is happening and something is coming your way and I'm benefiting and I have done nothing about it, and the thought doesn't come to you, it's tamas. You're unconcerned. It's coming, I'm taking. And indeed, I'm being benefited. But at your perspective, you don't entertain any thought. That's tamas. Rajas is where you are extremely concerned, where you get too carried away. You become too emotional. You become too sentimental. You get too involved. As a result of which you're affected, you have lost your balance. You're influenced by whatever you're relating with, whether be it a domestic problem, it could be an official problem, it could be if you're too involved with the politics constantly influences your mental sanity. You don't know where the country is going, where the financials are going, where the business is going. Whatever is happening in life starts having a toll on you, as whenever you pass by a toll, automatically it gets debited, isn't it? Without you knowing, it's keep debited, automatically it gets transferred from your bank account. So there's a minimum balance in that toll sticker. Just pass by the toll, it gets deducted. You like it or not? So everything that you're dealing with in life is having a toll on you. It hurts you. It disturbs you. That's because of your concern, too concerned. And then comes an attitude of sattva where you maintain an unconcerned concern. Now you have to go beyond language. Unconcerned concern. You're unconcerned because you are pegged your thoughts and attention on something more worthwhile. You pegged your attention on something higher, on something nobler, on a larger purpose. So as a result of which you are unconcerned to the lower because you're concerned to the higher. And that is nothing but a spirit of detachment. So the verse 6 spoke about the attachment to the physical body. When you get attached to the physical body, in fact, the verse says, as long as breath lasts in the body, so long will there be an inquiry of welfare at home. People will inquire about your well-being. Moment breath leaves, the body decays. Even the wife fears the same body. So what we are trying to understand here is that, as I've mentioned briefly, that there are two types of people in the world. Majority of people are people who give too much importance to the body, too much value. A small minority of people disregard the body. So the majority of people are reveling in the senses. They believe the physical body is an avenue for mere sense gratification. And they think there's no end to merely go on gratifying your senses. Whatever your eyes want, whatever your skin want, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, Just because you're able to give in to whatever the senses demand, you fall a prey to those sensual demands and keep gratifying them. Such people get into what is known as body worship. That doesn't mean you should neglect the body. That doesn't mean you should disregard the body. How should you use your physical body? The Shastras say, just give it enough importance. Your physical body is just a mere vehicle. It's a mere container. So use it, treat it as a vehicle which takes you in your journey. So maintain it, keep it in good repair so that it serves a purpose. It's a mere instrument. It should serve as a mere instrument for your own self-development, self-unfoldment, self-purification. So don't get trapped into falling a prey to these sensual demands. There is no taste for the tongue before the food touches the tongue or it leaves the presence of the palate, isn't it? Does the food have any taste before it touches the tongue or after it slips past the tongue? And yet, for that 1-inch palate, you don't leave any stone unturned to go and satisfy whatever your palate wants, and you destroy yourself. You're destroying yourself because you have no control over your senses. Spirituality begins with self-control and sense control. If you can't practice self-control and sense control, you are unfit for spirituality. What are you talking about? Greater controls and conquering the mind, getting rid of your selfish desires and your vasanas. Those are greater challenges. The mere senses you can't control. What are you talking about? These are the fundamentals of spirituality. Now, but when they talk of sense control or self-control, it is not that you must deny yourself of your sensual pleasures. Give yourself whatever pleasure you want, the best of it you can have, please. But it only means that, okay, if I can ask you all, what is the difference between sense control, contacting the senses vis-a-vis sensual indulgence? What is the difference between the two? Because we are saying self-control is not self-denial. It means you don't have to deny yourself of any contact. If someone offers you sattvic food, you can't say, no, I'm not supposed to eat anything which is delicious, because you're not supposed to pamper your tongue, senses. No, I will not eat. Give me something which is very, very spicy and pungent and unpalatable. Then it's okay. It's not that you must punish your senses. Whatever your senses need, please go ahead and give it, provided it is acceptable. So what is the difference between sense contact, rightful sense contact, and sensual indulgence? What's the difference? You must note the difference. And that's the thin line between the two. There's a thin line. Srinivas Reddy Garu, what's the difference?
I'm sorry, I'm just not able to get the point.
You're not able to get the point. Where are you struggling, sir? What is it that you don't understand?
Oh, I think as you mentioned, that is a very thin gap. So Sukshmam is really a challenge. Getting that wide gap.
I'm glad I at least asked this question. Otherwise, I would just slip past by it, thinking that you get the message.
That's
right.
True.
Right. All right. No problem, sir. Understandable. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Meena ji can be given the access, please.
This is Bhishma, Meena's husband.
Yes, sir. Namaskaram. Yes, sir. Hari Om.
It's excessive indulgence, excessive giving into excessive pleasure.
Giving into, yes. By the word you say, giving into anything that's excessive, you call as indulgence. Now, just being with you, sir, when you say excessive, whose standard are you measuring?
It's my own interpretation.
Fair. No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm only trying to unfold your understanding. You're perfectly right in your understanding, but I'm just trying to unfold it and get a deeper context. Superficially, when we say indulgence as, what did you say? Excessive. But
Yes.
whose standard should we take?
It's my own standard.
Now, would I use your standard for myself and others? Can we use your standard? If you say, just for example, sir, if you can comfortably have homemade lovely parathas you can have 2 parathas you can have for dinner. And the food is so lovely and the kitchen continues to supply and you continues to wallop. Let's say you go on eating and then you realize, oh no, I've already eaten 3 and 4. I'm actually ordered for the 5th one also. So by your definition, if 2 you eat is not excessive, anything beyond 2 becomes excessive, it's indulgence. Am I right, sir?
Yes.
So many people would define indulgence as a quantitative contact, isn't it? Many would think that way. Anybody amongst us here thinks differently? Srini, would you think differently? You think it's quantitative or it's anything other than that?
I think I might think about it slightly differently. It's not necessarily quantitative. I would say it's when you get really attached to it, if I were to use your own word, and therefore the tolerance level of attachment to each person is fundamentally different. And that's where you get to the excessiveness, I would think, or the indulgence, as you called it.
I'm sorry, could you come again on that, please? I'm sorry.
So the concept I see is, if you say there is sensual indulgence, is the concept which you are raising. I think the indulgence comes in when the person is really attached to the taste. In this example, you said parathas, right? And
yeah.
So it goes back to the whole concept of attachment, that the more attached you are for that particular taste, and that threshold is determined whether quantitatively or not necessarily quantitatively. It may be a state of mind as well.
Yeah. In fact, that's where I'm getting at. It is, in fact, it's not only to be measured with a quantity. In fact, the Shastras are baffling. The concept is baffling unless you carefully examine, we miss the point. Many people think it is actually quantitative. It is actually not quantitative at all. If you remember, and even this morning as I started off, I said by saying that attachment and detachment is not a physical state. It is not measured physically. It's a mental attitude. So the difference between sense contact and sensual indulgence is not physical, it's not quantitative, it's actually defined by what establishes the contact with the sense object. I'm just trying to take you a little beyond the realms you're comfort with. Before I say that, I think Vaidyanathan ji had to want to say something. Yes, sir. Have you raised your hand, sir?
I was saying that we need to start from our ultimate goal, that is to still the mind. So any attachment, any sense pleasure that disturbs that is excessive. And our goal should be to progressively reduce our dependence or like or attachment to anything that disturbs our mind when we sit down to meditate. So the ultimate goal of trying to stay stir or calm should define what is excessive or indulgence that should be totally avoided.
You've got a very valid point, sir. In fact, it's if you take it further and dwell on it, anything that takes you away from your chosen path,
Right.
because there's nothing as right and wrong. It's like is going to a party and having a few drinks with friends. Is it right or wrong? Well, who's to say that? Let's say an example: a tennis player. He's playing his maiden tournament of, let's say, the Wimbledon, and to his surprise, he thought he would never last a few rounds, but he has made it to the finals. So after winning the semifinals, when he's got a confirmed berth that he's going to play the final, so there's a gap between the semifinal, the end of the semifinal game and the final game. So the day before the finals, he calls all his friends and he wants to celebrate. And he calls a very dear few friends and he wants to have a party, a few drinks here and there. I'm sure there's nothing wrong. I'm not here advocating that drinks is right. I've been a teetotaler all my life. I shall remain that way. But I'm just saying, there's nothing wrong to have a social drink. But yet, to have a drink a day before you're playing a final in a grand tournament like that, or it's any tournament for that matter, out of your brain. The coach will say, have you got nuts, man? You've got a tournament tomorrow morning and you're getting drunk today. You're having a party today. Get focused, man. You should be in the net. You should be doing a training. You should be getting relaxed, getting your muscles relaxed, or whatever you need to do. There's nothing as right and wrong. It's only with reference to your goal and purpose. So the Shastras give us a complete license to do whatever you want to do. It is not to compartmentalize yourself into a certain rigidity and say, this is right, that is wrong. No, it is nothing like that. I'll give you examples. I'll give you classic examples the Shastras give just to clarify this. There are two examples given in the context. Lord Krishna, the picturization of his life as a person, apart from the philosophy, if you look at life of Krishna, he was someone known to have had associated with many gopis, isn't it? Many women through the course of his life, as many as 16,000 women. It's just figurative. But just to quantify it, he is someone who has had a jolly good time through his life. But yet, the title Lord Krishna was given as, what was Lord Krishna called? Hirenji, do you know what Lord Krishna was called in the context? He had many names. So the Gita, if you read, there are many, many titles he's given, he's known.
No, I don't know.
You don't know. Are you saying because Amma is sitting next to you, or is any other reason?
No. What? I don't know. No, I don't know which one, because he got so many names.
Yeah. Many
I
names.
am not being able to, yeah.
Yeah. Mickey ji? Where are you? Oh, yeah, there you are. Yeah. You know the name what Krishna is called? Even Lord Rama didn't get that name.
No, I don't, Guruji. No, sorry.
No idea. Okay. Yes, sir.
Karma Yogi.
Karma Yogi. No. Lord Krishna, Karma Yogi? No, I don't think so. You could say so as a jnani, as an intellectual, but even that is slightly out of context. The fact that he is associated with so many women, in the story wise, and the name he is known as Nitya Brahmachari. Nitya means constant. Brahmachari means a celibate. Are you joking? Nitya Brahmachari. He is an eternal celibate. Even as I said, Lord Rama, he didn't get that name. He was only wedded to Sita all his life. He upheld that integrity, and yet he didn't get that title. On the other hand, sage Durvasa was a man who had great appreciation for food. And sage Durvasa was actually visiting a place, and he was housed in an ashram. And the king in the vicinity who lived there, he knew that sage Durvasa was visiting that place. He was passing by and he was staying for a few days. So they wanted to get darshan of the sage, of the wise man. So the king, along with the entourage, the queen and the big entourage, went to have the darshan of the sage. But it was heavy downpour and the river was swelling, so it was practically impossible for them to cross the lake. So they go back to Lord Krishna and ask, we want to go and have darshan of the Durvasa, but the river is overflowing and we can't cross. Can you please give us a way how to go and meet him? And they know, says Durvasa had great taste for food, and he would have consumed loads of food and he would still consume. He was hungry for more. He wanted more. So they carried a lot of food, all the food he loved, they took with them to offer to him. And they were disappointed if they don't see him. Then they said, Krishna said, go up to the river and pray the river and say, if sage Durvasa is a Nitya Upavasi, please give us the way. They said, what? We know sage Durvasa is someone who enjoys food, who indulges in food as it were. He is a hogger. And you say, go and say the river, he's a Nitya Upavasi. Are you gone nuts, Krishna? Please, you want help, I'm giving you. So they went with the faith on Krishna. They went up to the river and prayed, if sage Durvasa is a Nitya Upavasi, please give us way. The goddess Ganga, example, she acknowledged and parted ways. The entourage crossed. So they went and met and fed, took the blessings of the sage Durvasa, and on their way back, again the river is flowing full. Now how do they go back? Now they didn't know anyone else, so they go back to sage Durvasa and say, Durvasa, Swamiji, please help us. We want to go back to our palace. The river is overflowing. Then he says, go and pray to the river. If Lord Krishna is Nitya Brahmachari, please show us the way. Enna Swamiji, you know Krishna, he has been literally a playboy right from his childhood. He's been only playing tricks and pranks and all his mischief. And you tell Krishna as a Nitya Brahmachari, you want to go back home or not? Yes, Swamiji, go and say thou. So they went up to the river and say, if Lord Krishna is a Nitya, what? Brahmachari, please show us the way. Ganges acknowledged and parted ways and they came back. Now, these are two classic examples of great men who are held in high regard. One is a great saint, another is Lord Krishna himself. Both have lived a life of absolute licentiousness. One who kept on eating, another person kept on contacting the sense object. And yet, it is called, they are known as Nitya Upavasi, eternal faster, eternal celibate. Is it not contradictory? It is contradictory. You may agree or not. This is only to set us thinking. They have not taken any Swami who has renounced everything and living in a hut in isolation, wearing a ochre robe as a man of renunciation. No, they take these two examples. Strange, but yet it's true. It's just to make us think, just to clarify that attachment and detachment is not physical. It's a mental attitude you carry. It's purely a mental attitude. Remember this. Take a note. Take a note. Yes, Hirenji.
Why this? You said that Krishnaji is a Nitya Brahmachari.
Yeah.
Why it is not known at all to common people? Everybody, when they talk about it, they know Krishna was a playboy, right? And that is how it is known. And why this particular thing that Nitya Brahmachari, the example you gave me very impressive, which I mean, not me, I mean, a lot of people have not heard it. That's what I'm saying.
See, the sad reality is people are not taught the philosophy of Gita. The philosophy, the philosophical kernel is not given. They are just carried away by the stories and the parables. So it's only the exterior that is known. The inner truth is never conveyed. So sadly, you're left with empty vessels, outer shells without any inner content. So it's very wrong on our part to hold such grand men on such low regard. There is a great message these men convey, whether be it through their text or through their lifestyle. Everything these great men did was only to convey a message to mankind. It can't be that you give them a certain title and then say they behave like that. It's not possible. They have a very high caliber. And we're talking of Lord Krishna, and how can we say Krishna was a playboy? And we are just mincing words. We're blowing hot and cold. It doesn't gel that way. And yet you worship him as a Lord. Sing any bhajan without the name Krishna or Rama coming in it. Imagine a bhajan. Invariably, every other bhajan, there is a name of Lord Rama or Krishna. It just talks of the grandeur of their stature. It is so divine. You hold them in such high regard, and yet we can't say that they were just mere playboys. No, it's not right. But sadly, as I've said, the philosophical message is not conveyed. Okay? So it's only to convey this message that, in fact, they went to the extent that it almost tarnished their image with the only objective of conveying what the message is. That's the greatest sacrifice or a length a man can go through. All right. Vijay Raghavanji, you want to say something?
Hari Om Guruji. Just a thought. If when you start seeking gratification of the act instead of from the act, which means that you are more in process of continuing to do it, it's a super intelligence. Is it an ironical definition of nitya when a person, leaving these particular examples or context aside, is it an example that when you just continue to do it, even when you don't have a craving, when you got addicted to it or got so used to it, you continue to do it, that's called the intelligence?
Now, if I've understood you correctly, if somebody continues to do it because he's addicted to it, is that what you say?
There is no craving. Even when the cravings are satisfied, the cravings comes once in a while. Whatever depends on the particular individual and the topic. And if you continue to do it even after your cravings are satisfied, I felt that is a real example of intelligence.
Yeah. Yes. In fact, you're actually making a lot of technical terms you're conveying in your own way, but you're right, very right. In fact, coming back to you're very right, Vijay Raghavanji, you're absolutely right. So coming back to the question, what is sense contact vis-a-vis, when is it that you're indulging? Is, as I've said, what is it that establishes a contact with the sense object? When your contact is established by the mind, when your mind contacts the sense objects, it is termed sense indulgence. Vis-a-vis when your own intellect permits the mind to maintain a contact, it's very conscious. It's the intellect that tells you, all right, there's no harm for you to experience this or enjoy this. And it's in no way going to hinder or interfere or derail or shift your focus from where you're wanting to go. Yet you have no problem, you can enjoy it. You get into that, experience it and come out. So you've never lost your focus of the higher. So if your intellect, Buddhi, tells you to establish a contact, it is called self-control. But when your mind drives you into any sensual pleasures, it is known as sensual indulgence. So it is not quantitative, it what contacts it. So these men, we took examples of, contacted the world with no value for it. They had no value for it. So they just led a particular life without having a mental value. So the moment you have a value for something, and you know exactly what value you have for and for what you have a value, isn't it? How much value you have for what you know inwardly, isn't it? Is it not? You know what you really value in your life. The moment you have a value for something, it's invariably the mind that has developed an attachment to it. As Sriniji has said, that indulgence, you lose control because it's an attachment. Attachment is you have a value. I would qualify and say a black market value, a value more than what it deserves. It means so much to you that you have got great joy or love from it. So you've got attached to it. You're not able to think anything other than it. That's attachment. That's the mind. But you can deal with it. You can have a healthy relationship, go on relating with anything. But understand, it has a purpose. Everything has a place. You don't get carried away. And as Vaidyanathanji has said, if you have lost your mental peace or balance, you have lost your mental control over your own mind, of your own thoughts, that means you're already attached to it. So the sixth verse is purely talking about developing an attachment to the body. Mickey ji, something to share?
No, no, not really. I think I'm just listening. Thank you.
No, I just sensed something you had to say or you wanted to say. You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Prasad Garu. Yes, sir. You have typed out here, what is the difference between the mind and the intellect? Both the thoughts are from the same mind. I don't see you, sir. Would you like to explain what you're asking? Prasad Garu, are you there? All right. But however, for the benefit of everyone, and for those who are not aware of this, the difference between the mind and the intellect. Okay, there I see Prasad Garu. Sir.
Sir, Hari Om.
Hari Om, sir. Yes, sir. So I just wanted you to clarify what you're asking.
Sir, everything is being generated through mind only. But what is the fine difference between intellect and the mind? Everything comes from mind only ultimately.
All right. Okay. Now, yeah, that's a very fair question. In fact, what is the difference between the mind, which is known as the Manus, and the intellect, which is known as the Buddhi? As you rightly said, both are at the level of thoughts. It has got nothing to do with the body. They are all at the level of your thoughts. The prima facie difference is the very pattern of thoughts. When your thoughts are irrational, impulsive, and erratic in nature, it is the Manus. They are thoughts, but when they become impulsive, irrational, and erratic, it's the mind. But the very same thoughts, when they become structured, when they become rational, it is the intellect. So thoughts are same. So the pattern it takes, what flow it has. So you can also go further and say that your mind is that which contains the various emotions. All the emotions, whether be it positive or negative, whether be it charity, forgiveness, kindness, pity, love, empathy, being sympathetic to others, all these positive emotions. At the same time, your mind can become filled with anger, greed, lust. Your mind can be full of desires. It could be selfish desires, unselfish desires. Your mind also is very, as I said, impulsive. It contains feelings. So if you take into this is the mind, the realm of the mind. And then the intellect is that aspect of your personality which is very rational. It thinks, it gives reasons. It is the intellect that makes choices. Of every choice you make, one is detrimental, one is beneficial. Am I to do this or am I to do that? A student at his juncture where he has to decide the future of his profession. Am I to take engineering or am I to take medicine? I hope he doesn't have such a predicament. There's two contrasting hearts. But if he has to make a choice, am I to do this or am I to do that? If somebody were to think, is that, am I to get married or not to get married? My suggestion is don't. But however, other day we went for a wedding and said, yet another fellow. I'm sorry, I'm sorry to all the ladies here. So no hard feelings, but just being factual. So I'm going to get a lot of prashad after the class. All the so the choice is there. Am I to do this or am I to do that? As Shakespeare puts it, to be or not to be, that's the question. Isn't it? He's sitting on the precipice and he's confused. Am I to fight the battle and avenge the one who killed my own father? He knew it was his own uncle because the father's ghost appears and tells in Hamlet that it's your own uncle that killed me. And he's sitting on the precipice and not making up his mind. To be or not to be, that's the question. Whether it's nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take up arms against a sea of trouble at my opposing end them. So what am I to do? And all the time in life, we are in dilemmas. We are struggling with what's the right choice to make. So intellect is of this aspect. In fact, intellect is always measured as a product of wisdom. Intellect is that which gives you that spirit of detachment. Intellect is that which maintains a sense of objectivity. It's the mind that develops an attachment. It is the mind that develops an overly concern. You're so concerned, you get affected. So if you start separating the mind and intellect, there's a world of difference. The world of difference. And your physical body, which I said is a vehicle, can either be driven on the mind or be driven by the intellect. So you need to know how many of your actions are driven by the mind and how many of your actions are driven by the intellect. You need to be conscious of it. Okay, Prasad Garu.
Yes, sir. Got it, sir.
Thank you.
Rightly said, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Namaskar. Yeah, Mickey, sir. Hirinji, just a minute. Mickey ji, yes, please.
Thank you, Guruji. I think there is also the aspect of experience, meaning that, for example, a little child will always operate at the level of the mind. If it's hungry, it'll cry. If it is fearful, it'll run, etc. But over time, as we acquire knowledge and more of it, some people seem to have the ability to organize it and use it to shape their reactions in a way that is more beneficial than just operating at the level of the mind. And some people pursue that knowledge vigorously. I think this is an example where all of us are learning from you. And also are able then to operate what we call a higher level, but it's not necessarily higher or lower level. It's different. So you don't make the mistakes that the mind can lead you in the direction of, including sexual indulgences, to your own detriment. Most of us have had a situation where you regret eating that last extra piece. And that is typically the mind taking you there. But if you can have the realization with experience that that makes you feel bad later, then perhaps your action will be adjusted accordingly. So I think there's this aspect of acquisition of knowledge, organizing it, shaping your reactions in a way that is just not the mind, but accumulated experience.
Yeah, Bikiji, very well said. In fact, if I'm sure you would agree with me, if I can ask you, where do you store all the information that you have acquired, which you have called it as knowledge? But I'm purposely coining it as information.
Right. Well, I think it's all in it is in the mind somewhere, but obviously it is all in that same bubble. But there does seem to be two different phenomena operating here. And I agree with you that the mind and the intellect, you can intuitively see that there is a difference. The mind tends to operate more like a bit of an animalistic, childish, or immature method.
Yes.
And almost everybody has a similar mind.
Yes.
Some people are able to put the governor of the intellect on it, and some people are not.
Yes.
And I think it's a lifelong quest, because the mind is so powerful.
Yes.
But if there's a way that you can realize that probably your true happiness will come not from, for example, pursuing wealth, but realizing that when you did acquire it, it did not bring additional happiness. So what is it that you're looking at? Then perhaps you can shape your actions in a way that will make you happier.
Yes, very true, very true. In fact, this is a perennial challenge. The mind and intellect are constantly in tug of war. The mind and intellect are constantly in battle. And it's the mind many a time that wins over the intellect, because the intellect is weak. So we are having a child in us overtake us. So we are running berserk, helter-skelter, not knowing what's the right thing to do. And we are getting into accidents, mental accidents, and not realizing where we're going wrong. And we keep repeating it. Even though we have gathered enough experience, enough information, that experience and information has not made us wise.
Right.
Why do you think so? Why has all the experience it's wisdom is not measured with experience, please. No doubt you need experience to gain that wisdom, but you can't conclude, therefore experience is wisdom. Nah, not so.
Correct. I think it's like the head and the heart. Your head is telling you to buy a car, but your heart is telling you to buy a motorcycle, even though it's more dangerous. And somehow it's very difficult to overcome that. And I agree with you, experience is not everything, because otherwise every old person would be wise. But
right. We're not saying otherwise here. Just because you're old doesn't mean you're foolish. It's not, the contrary is not true. Yeah, but it's not necessarily a rule to measure wisdom. So what we are saying is, wisdom is measured with your intellectual clarity. In fact, in not as many words, wisdom is intellect, and intellect is measured by the capacity to control your mind. Harishji, please capture this. Wisdom is the intellect, and just to be very sure that you have one, the only way you measure it with is the capacity to control your mind. And control your mind is areas where you can't control. That's where you test your strengths, isn't it? You don't test your strengths in areas of your strength. You test your strength in areas of your weakness. That is your strength. That is your weakness. That is your pitfall. So intellect is measured by the capacity to control your mind. Everybody has intelligence, certificates and degrees and graduates and post-graduation. You've got it all. Tons of experience, have led companies, being directors, boards of directors. You have acquired, you have experienced, you have reached the echelons of worldly perfections, but you are not able to keep your mind in your own place. I would say, what have you achieved? I've known people coming and confessing, sir, I've achieved everything, but I'm not able to keep my mind in my place. My mind is not in my control. Why? Because the intellect is not developed. And intellect is a product of this wisdom, this study of this wisdom. And the entire exercise we're going through of questioning is the churning of that knowledge. And it brings about a certain amount of clarity. I'm facilitating the process, but is this something you got to do day in and day out? It's like you go to the gym and the instructor gives you the regime and the process what you should do. But the rest of the week you go back home and do them. You got to do that. When you do that, you get health. Since we have never engaged our intellect with the backdrop of this knowledge, our intellects are very weak. And the mind which has been fed from very early childhood, it is robust and strong. So today your mind wants something, even though you very well know that you ought not to do it, your mind bulldozes and get what it wants. Simply bulldozes you. And there you have the conscience that comes in, and clearly you know that you are not doing the right thing. You know it very well. The only thing that, there's nothing as right and wrong, but the moment your conscience pricks you, you know you're wrong, because you have fallen a prey to your mind. So inwardly you're committed a sin. That is called a sin. Sin is when you have acted on the mind against your own conviction, against your own intellect. The mind overpowers. You've fallen a prey to your desire or your impulse, or you've indulged. And then something tells you, no, I don't think I should have done that. And that feeling, if it comes, you know it all, what that is. All right? Hiren ji, Hare ji, you are in queue. Aap Qatar mein hai.
Yeah, I think, Vinay ji, I got my answer. It was the last part was really revealing. The definition you came up with, intellect, with wisdom, and leading to control of your mind.
Right.
Fantastic. Very good. Thank you. I don't have any questions at this point.
Perfect, perfect. Appreciate it. In fact, this has to be taught at a very young age. This has to be taught to children from the age of 14, 15, 16. And then when you have this knowledge being given in a structured manner, you develop a strong intellect so that you're able to handle and manage yourself and what life throws at you. You're prepared to face life. Exactly like what the olden days gurukuls used to do. They used to give you the know-how of life and living, and then you go out and live a dynamic life. It's like you know the art of driving, and then you can drive the most powerful cars on the road out there, and yet have a master and control over it. So it's not the powerful car that's the problem. It's the lack of control that's the problem. So whether you have the ability to control the car, that's the question. Whether is your life, is your mind under your control? That's a serious question. Each one of us have to ask oneself.
Can I just ask the question? You have been telling that intellect is weak, which I do agree definitely. And is it something can be developed by practice? Of course, wisdom, definitely, and experience. Can we, how do we make it stronger? I mean, just saying it weak is not going to be sufficing it. So can you tell a little bit about it?
Yeah. In fact, a human intellect is developed. Everybody is born with it. Every human being has got an intellect. A plant has got a physical body.
Mm-hmm.
An animal has got a physical body and a partially developed mind. And if at all they have, it only has a rudimentary intellect, an animal. A human being has got a physical body, the most complex of all physical bodies. A human body is very complex, and you've got a fully developed mind and a fully developed intellect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
But it's like every human is born with a muzzle. We have muzzles, but you have to put them through a certain regime or certain exercise, a certain discipline. Then you develop the strength of the muscle. Isn't it? Any muscle.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no education system. And I say there's no education system, there is no system out there where this eternal principles can be given out in a methodic way, in a way you can reflect and contemplate and digest it. And the takeaway of that reflection and digestion is the wisdom, which reflects in the clarity of your intellect. Your thinking becomes very clear. So there has to be a methodology. And interestingly, where you get the wisdom or intellectual clarity is in the knowledge that you're transacting now. But if you acquire mere information and don't do anything about it, you don't get any wisdom, you only get information. Correct. So the information you have gathered must be set through a process of reflection. So it is the process of reflection, assimilation, and digestion that converts the knowledge into wisdom. I repeat, the process of reflecting on the acquired information and assimilating and digesting the understandings on the teachings becomes wisdom. What you are receiving is others' wisdom. It is my wisdom, is your information. Now you got to make that information your own. And how do you make that your own? You make it your own through reflection. When I received the knowledge from the gurus, it was their wisdom and my information. And I've embarked on a journey to make that wisdom my own. Nothing is mine in it, but it is the process you go through to make it wisdom, where once you have that, you start living it. You get it? Now, what I will do, there was a session not long ago where in one of the lectures, we spent an entire session explaining the details of what the process of reflection is. It's like a walk in a razor's edge, sir. It's a very, very precise, like a surgery you're doing. You know, a slip by a few centimeters here and there, you rupture the other organ. Isn't it? So it's like a delicate process. So it's a very scientific analysis. In fact, there is already a document that has been prepared and shared with the group. We will try to bring it up to you all, and we will discuss it perhaps before we get on to the text next week. Since there is so much of interest and inquiry, I'll be happy to share that document with you all, which gives you an insight into the process and the methodology. How do you do it? It throws more light. Okay, because we're also short of time. We'll come back to it afresh, sir. But for now, I think you have necessary information for now. All right, sir?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, right. Srinivas Garu, you had something to ask, sir?
Yeah, my thought on this part is that there is a conflict of taking over mind and intellect, because as you said that the example of the parathas, so you fall prey to that.
I have forgotten the parathas long ago. You
to
the parathas.
So I need to bring back to you the paratha, because
sir, you must be very hungry, sir. Come, let's go for a paratha breakfast, sir. I'm with you. I'm ready. Ready, huh?
No, why it is impacting me? I gone through the same example just few hours back in the night.
Okay. Right.
So is this conflict, because with the wisdom what we have, experience what we gain, and we know very well that we need to have overpower the mind, and we need to use our consciousness to prevail on the wrongdoing things where the mind trying to guide us. But I think we all the time in the life, if fall prey to that, we regret it, we'll again come back to the same situation. So this cycle continues. I think I think the life goes on more on the correcting, controlling, regretting that. So as I think one of the participants have been mentioned very clearly, that how do we really strengthen our intellect, where we can say that the weak intellect can be a strong intellect and the strong mind can be a weak. So there where we have total control on wisdom on the life, what we talk about it.
Yeah. It's just, I'm not alarmed now. But my little journey started very early in my life when I was 16, and it didn't impact me as much as it started impacting me later once I started interacting this knowledge with the world. The gravity of the situation, and I see it so vividly, and it becomes more and more vivid as time passes, the need to inject this wisdom into the lives of people so that it becomes a beacon of light to guide them. The importance of it is paramount. People don't realize it, and life only is not going to get any easier. It's only going to challenge you, and we know we are going to, it's a lost battle, and the conflict is all the time within. So one has to embark on a journey of that self-development, or the development of one's own buddhi or the intellect. It's a journey, and there's enough wisdom and clarity here to sail us through that journey. So the important thing is the realization that yes, my intellect is weak and I need to strengthen it. The journey begins with that. And once, and I think there's enough realization, it's very evident. It's just the matter of fact that we have to embark on a journey. So I think if I could have you, make sure you're there the next session. I'll sail you through the concept and the process, and then you will have to, it's a process of self-inquiry. It's a process which you have to take it up on your own. Like no guru can think for you. No, even you go to a yoga teacher, the instructor will instruct you, but you will have to do it yourself. You will have to stretch that muscle. You will have to put it effort. Similarly, the guidance is there, but you will have to do it. And if you do that, and that process of reflection in Sanskrit is known as manana. And if you do that on a daily basis without fail, I will guarantee you will start seeing a phenomenal difference in your intellectual awareness in a matter of month or month and a half.
Oh, that's really great.
In a month's time, you'll come back to me and say, sir, yes, I see the difference. But you got to stick to the regime. No means no, yes means yes. Get up is get up. You got to do it as a military discipline. You got to do it. And once you honor that discipline, it's like you're going through a antibiotic course or a strict medical course. Doctor says, don't miss even a single day. You got to adhere to that strict discipline, and then the result is there for you to be seen. It's nothing. It's not being trial and tested. This is proven facts of life. We need to surrender, and then go by the advice. Believe me, there is enough wisdom out there to benefit. It's always a buffet. Help yourself.
Yeah, that's great. Look forward for next session on the secrets of the wisdom.
Yeah, but buffet without paratha.
So definitely, once we have wisdom, we'll forget the parathas.
You will enjoy the paratha without guilt. No problem. You still enjoy, but not without any guilt. Perfect, sir. Right.
That's
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Harish ji, you are in queue. Qatar mein hai. Harish, I think we will have to spill over a few minutes. I seek your permission. A few minutes more, please. Yes, Harish ji.
Hari Om, Guruji.
Hari Om.
Guruji, you said earlier, the moment your conscience pricks you, you know you're wrong. There are many times we do things believing we are right, and we feel very satisfied and we're at peace after having conducted a certain act in our lives, and we're very peaceful about it. Then at some point, sometimes somebody comes and tells you you're wrong and criticizes the act and creates a judgment and says you did the wrong thing. Until that person came along in the world, you were perfectly fine with that act. But sometimes when the person comes and pricks you and tells you did a wrong thing or a bad thing, then sometimes one feels very unsettled and for some reason uneasy out of the blue. It crops up from nowhere, the disturbance. And then I will start questioning myself, is that person right? Did I actually do something wrong? Then my mind starts questioning the act which never had a thought prior to the person's criticism. So how do we navigate the situation where we think we're doing it right until somebody criticizes us, then we're questioning maybe they're right and we're wrong. And then it starts disturbing our mind. What does this mean and how to tackle this, Guruji?
Right. See, what in short is when somebody clarifies or comments on your actions, what you must look at it as additional information or knowledge coming your way, which is being used as a tool to assess or measure your action. That's about all, isn't it? So when you performed an action, there's X amount of knowledge or X amount of awareness. If somebody walks in and this additional information comes into your life, you're evaluating that same action with additional knowledge, perhaps higher knowledge. What was perfect 5 years ago? Let's say your lifestyle, your food habits, the life you led 5 years back. When you look back in your life now, 5 years back, would you be happy and satisfied with all that you did then? Or would you think, I wish I could have done what I'm doing now then? Wouldn't you say so?
Correct. Yes, correct.
So but what has happened in the course of the past few years? That you have acquired larger wisdom, you've enhanced your knowledge, your awareness has increased. So you're evaluating your past actions with the current wisdom. Obviously, you feel you would have been much better. Exactly the same way, when somebody comes and clarifies a particular act or clarifies something in your life, you're viewing it from additional wisdom, greater knowledge. And as long as you come to terms that at that point, I think I'm right. So there's no need to feel any guilt or remorse, because given that knowledge, given your capacity, what you did was right. You can't be beyond you can't do anything beyond your capacity, can you?
No.
So given your capacity, given your entire efforts, you have done your right. But even if you feel a sense of guilt, that's a sign that you have been wrong. If there is slightest of guilt, no doubt there's additional information somebody comes and says, I think what you did is wrong. If you feel comfortable about it, no problem. That means you're right from your perspective. They have misunderstood you. But the moment the remark comes and you feel bad about yourself, that means you're not right. So it's what's your comfort feeling. The moment you start revisiting that act and say, oh no, he's right, I think I should have not done that. Or perhaps I should have done that way. That's a sign that you were wrong. But if you have performed to your maximum and there's nothing more you could have done, and even if somebody comes and tells, you say, yes, I will move further from here. From this moment onwards, I will take that into account, but no remorse, because I've reached my maximum. That's it.
Thank you, Guruji.
All right. Okay. Vaidyanathanji, you wanted to share something?
I was going to say something earlier when we were talking about intelligence and buddhi, and the two important words were there, discrimination and dispassion, viveka and vairagya, which is part of buddhi, and mind lacks that. And again, I go back to the goal. Anything that detracts you from the goal, the mind detracts from the goal, buddhi keeps you on the goal. That's what I wanted to add.
Very well said, sir. Very, very, very well said. In fact, the fact that you remind us of the goal in a pictorial way to describe the goal is said to be the blinkers. These race courses, horses, horses and race courses, they have these blinkers on. They have this blinker so that they don't get distracted with all the euphoria around them. So they just kept to the track, they kept to the focus, they're just doing, they don't lose their focus. So that blinkers on is the intellect. And it is the mind that runs helter-skelter. So it's the intellect that keeps the mind to the course of action, what you got to do. And keep to the path.
Yes.
Very well said, sir. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Srinivas Reddy Garu. So again, I should hope it's not the paratha again, huh?
No, not at all. No, like, I just want to get back here. We are talking more about, I'm just putting in a wording, mind as a more like a villain and the intellect is more like a hero, you know, whole of the things. The way we are being projecting that the intellect is going to be the ultimate and intellect is the one, and mind start doing something and intellect comes in the picture for correcting the mind's thought process, whatever it may be here. That's where we are trying, as I can say that it is more like intellect is going to be a guiding force. Like as rightly said that the mind detracts the goals and the intellect drives towards the goals. But is it a reality? Because without mind existence, without mind in place, we can't sustain, we cannot leave the things there in that. So I don't say that the mind is the one where we need to discriminate in such a way that we need always in a control. I mean to say the mind doesn't do anything good. I'm sorry, I'm putting across the question in a different manner.
No, it's a very valid observation and it's a very pertinent question. It's not that the mind is being personified as the devil here. No, the mind we're only saying is the child, the intellect is adult. The child needs supervision and control. An uncontrolled child can create havoc, can damage, and can cause destruction to itself and others.
Okay, got the point.
Therefore, it needs supervision. That's about all. But the supervisor also can be wrong. The parent also can be wrong.
That's right.
So it's not that the child is always wrong. In fact, the classic example of Duryodhana, who had an intellect, but when you use the intellect to satisfy your own selfish purposes, that intellect is also wrong. Where the intellect, it doesn't give direction, the wisdom doesn't guide the intellect. Then you go in the wrong direction.
Fine.
All right.
Got the
Great,
answer.
Great, sir.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
Hirenji.
Sorry, something is getting late, but something came to my mind that intellect and intelligence. I've been doing some work on IQ and EQ, reading books and discussing with some people back in India. And so where does it, basically it says that IQ is given, everybody has their own IQ, which is proven now that that is not enough. You might have somebody might have a very high IQ, but could not be a successful person or could not be a happy person unless you have enough EQ, or an EQ can be developed from the childhood for anybody. So where does that IQ, intelligence factor, and intellect, what we are talking about right now, how do you define that?
I'm addressing this coming weekend. I'm addressing IIM, one of the IIM institutes here. And the topic I'm addressing them is the art of self-management. And the theme of this, I usually talk this to the education bodies because it's their objective to equip you with necessary education so that it helps you to live life, it prepares you to face life. Why I'm saying that is, it's not being done there either. It's all transaction of information, which earlier I said that your mind is a storehouse of information. It just gathers information and just acquires it. And it invariably, you just transact that information with those who don't have it and you make a living. That's about all. A person who has done medicine has knowledge of medicine. He sells medicine to those who doesn't have it, makes a healthy living. A person of engineering sells knowledge of engineering to make a living. A man with knowledge of commerce sells his knowledge to make a living. That's about all. Intelligence helps you to make a living. But if you want to make a life more meaningful, purposeful, and happy, you need to have an intellect. Now, intelligence is information. Intellect is buddhi. And the difference between the two is intellect is you should be able to control your mind. It's not how intelligent you are. If I'm not able to keep my mind in its place, forget it. Your life has gone for a 6. You will not be able to master your own mind. You will not be peaceful and contented. You'll make a mess of your life. And the state humanity is in the world today is because there's no intellect, there's no wisdom. Now, I'm not making sweeping statement. Look at lives of people. Let everybody go within and confess to themselves. Am I peaceful and happy? Have I got a control over my life? There's hardly anybody out there who can claim so. I'm not challenging. I'm only meeting the minds of people day in and day out. I know what the reality is. It's not how successful you are. It's not where you are in life. They know they have lost that game of life. So if we prepare these younger generation to be prepared to play the game of life, now people have been playing an unfair game because you have never been equipped to play the game. So you're always losing the game of life. So my point is, prepare to play the game of life. And even if you lose, never mind, but you're ready. There's an even battle between you and the world, between you and your mind. So even before you meet the world, I've lost within. I failed because I'm a failure within. It's a very unfair. It's very sad. I kept saying this. In fact, I mentioned this very clearly in the very beginning of the Eternal Wisdom series. Everyone needs a manual to life. And this is what the manual is. And you not respected the manual, you do not know how to steer yourself, how to conduct yourself. Okay. So that's a difference, sir.
Thank you.
Right. Mickey G.
Thank you, Guruji. I know we're running over, but just very quickly, as you were speaking, it struck me that if you take like a powerful racing car, or if you take a rocket, I think the mind is like the engine of the car. Without it, there is no chance. You need that power, 500 horsepower. But the intellect is like the steering wheel and the brake. Because if either of those fail, then you will have an accident. So the two have to be together. It's not as though one is good or bad.
Yes.
But like a big Saturn V rocket can take you all the way to Mars, but only if in the cockpit there is a steering system. So I think that's why we sort of say it's a higher order function, because it's kind of controlling everything. But it's not superior in any way, but it is essential.
It is essential. It is essential. Very, very essential. Correct example. Perfect example, Ji. Perfect. Yeah. Yes, Harish Ji.
Guruji, I think we are very much beyond time, but I just wanted to say 2 things. One is the process of reflection document has been posted on the chat group, on the chat box. So though we will also post it to the satsang group, but if people who would like can copy it down from the chat box, and that could be the basis of our discussions next time. The second thing is, I'm reminded of your wonderful example in the earlier lectures of the intellect and the mind, where the mind is the uncontrolled or indiscriminate flow of thoughts like a raging river. Now, just as much as, the raging river is dissipative in the sense the water just dissipates away until you have the proper banks and the proper dam to channelize and focus it. So the intellect is like the banks of the river and the dam which converts the dissipative water into a productive water. So that is what, and just as much from the same concept, the mind, when you talk of individuals in a large setting, everybody's mind pulls in different directions, their own directions. The moment, this by definition makes the group dissipative because energies are going in various directions. The moment you get rid of your personal ego and you focus on a larger cause, whatever it is, a cause outside your person, right? Automatically the dissipativeness reduces. So one of the examples of strengthening wisdom is to is to, which you have said, is that you concentrate on a higher cause, or you align yourself to a higher cause.
Perfect. Ji. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.